Live from clickorlando.com, News 6 Plus, and WKMG. We're getting results in your neighborhood now at 6:30 p.m.
Good evening. This is News 6 at 6:30, getting results. Thanks for joining us here live on News 6 Plus. I'm Justin Moorman.
And I'm Lisa Bell in Virginia Gadsden. Our first story takes us to the airport as we take a live look at Orlando International Airport from our Light Orlando Delivering Hope cam. Leaders there have been working to figure out how to solve an illegal parking problem. Earlier this month, airport leaders said it is getting better, but some people tell us that is not true.
News 6 anchor Eric Von Anken first exposed the problem back in November. Drivers parking illegally on the side of the road leading up to the terminals. It's really dangerous. It's something he has covered several times, and tonight he is back at the airport to see if there really is anything going on with the changes.
This is the press release from the airport on July 17th. They say they recently worked with the Orlando Police Department to enhance enforcement, which had a significant impact. They say they moved in June 1,619 vehicles. In the first half of July, 420 vehicles were moved. But did it change drivers' behavior? Well, as you can see over there on a Monday afternoon, apparently not. And watch this.
Just one night after the airport sent out that press release, this dash cam footage was recorded by Uber driver and business owner Scott Ellis. After his close call, Scott warned us about the dangers of illegal shoulder parking, not just allowing cars to sit so close to the tarmac and parked planes, but also the confusion that it causes for traffic driving past the impromptu parking lot. Watch the silver SUV suddenly braking and then slowing, just as a pickup driver decides to leave the shoulder, merge into traffic, and cross 3 lanes.
And the airport clearly understands this is a bad idea. They say that right here in their press release, that illegal parking not only poses a hazard to drivers, but also obstructs traffic flow and causes congestion. And the airport says that some of these drivers will get warnings, maybe even tickets. And we also told you how the airport is looking into other ideas besides enforcement. Things like not just additional no parking signs, but flashing lights, maybe loudspeakers, even cameras here on the side of the road. And the airport wants to remind you there are always 2 round-the-clock free and legal places to park. This is one of them. This is the north cell phone waiting lot. There's also the south. There are signs all over the place. They're small, but they will get you here. Check this out. They have a display screen showing when flights are touching down so you know when to head to the terminal. And the best part, if you're waiting here, that means you're not waiting at the airport and adding to the congestion on the roads around the terminals. At MCO, Eric Von Anken getting results. News 6.
And we know parking in general at MCO can be an issue. And right now on clickorlando.com, we have an article. It walks you through 5 hacks to find parking. You can find this right now on the homepage.
More than 30 years after a man was murdered, his family learned today that they will have to wait even longer for justice. They are really upset about this. Ronald Cates was arrested almost 2 years ago, but now concerns about his mental health are prolonging the case in court. News 6's Catherine Silver was at today's hearing.
30 years to the day, Ronald Cates is in jail.
When the Orange County Sheriff announced the arrest 2 years ago, John Stagner's daughter thought it was the closure she needed. But since then,
32 years we've waited, we're going to keep waiting.
Jonetta Grant and her family have been waiting for justice in court.
This is the 3rd time we've tried to have the hearing on whether the case would be dismissed or whether he may or may not be competent.
Monday, a judge denied the defense's motion to dismiss the case.
There's also a substantial likelihood that without care or treatment, he'll cause seriously bodily harm to himself or others.
And decided to commit Cates to a different treatment facility. Since November, he's been at a center on the Treasure Coast for people who are not competent to stand trial.
The testimony was he does suffer from a schizophrenia class disorder as well as these neurological disorders.
What would be an ideal outcome for you all?
I just don't wish him ever to be out in society.
Barbara Marshall is John Stagner's niece. What do you remember about that morning?
When I went in the house where he had been killed, It's a day I'll never forget.
Marshall says her world fell apart when she learned Stagner, a maintenance worker in Orange County, was beaten to death in 1992. Marshall vowed to get answers, but there was no arrest until detectives say Cates confessed decades later.
So I've known of him this whole time.
And you have memories of him?
Yes, I do. He would come and borrow tools and money and, just have dinner.
Your family had to fight for decades to even get an arrest in this case, and now you're fighting in court.
It's hard to be patient, but there's really nothing you can do about it.
Stagner's daughter actually flew in all the way from Kentucky to go to this hearing. She tells me she will keep showing up until there is justice. Cates is expected back in court in November, so prosecutors and his attorney will see where things stand then. In Orange County, I'm Catherine Silver, getting results, News 6.
Being patient is one thing, but 32 years
that's
is a long time.
I understand where they're coming from. And while this cold case makes its way through the court system, there are roughly 20,000 unsolved homicide cases in Florida waiting to be closed. That's according to My Florida Legal.
That is a lot of cases. News 6's Molly Reed just told us about the case of Lara Spear in Volusia County. Take a look. April marked 30 years since she was murdered in DeLand. She was just 15 years old at the time. The sheriff recently increased the reward to $100,000 for information that could lead to an arrest. And our digital team compiled other cold cases in Central Florida, and where you can find the entire list by county and on the state level. You can find all of that information in that story at clickorlando.com under Top Stories.
Developing right now, it's a story many people in our community hope ends in an arrest. Orange County Animal Services says these two dogs right here, Calvin and Hobbs, were dumped from a car. They say this dog here was actually hit and dragged while the car was driving away. So yes, someone not only dumped these dogs here, but also ran over one of them and left him badly hurt. Just horrible. This happened about 2 weeks ago, not far from Camping World Stadium on South Rio Grande Avenue near 18th Street. That's in the Holden Heights area. We have since learned the dogs were being taken care of by an Orlando-based rescue called Forever Bully Love Rescue. According to their social media post, the dog that was run over needs his leg amputated and is set to have surgery this week. We have reached out to law enforcement to see if they can give us any information about who may have dumped these dogs. And they told us in part, quote, "This incident is still an active and ongoing animal cruelty investigation." Make sure you have our News 6 app so you can be among the first to get an update on this story once we get one. Our app is free in your app store. Just search WKMG. All right, let's get over to meteorologist Jonathan Kegas tonight, pinpointing what's still left on the radar. Probably just the heat, Jonathan.
Just the heat, yeah. We got rid of all the rain showers and thunderstorms out there right now. We're taking a hazy look at the Orlando International Airport. That's a live look from our downtown Orlando, Light Orlando, delivering hope sky cam this evening. Cool shot there of the plane coming in through all of that haze. Made it to 92 degrees today. We had those storms fire up and help cool things down, relatively speaking, of course. Normal temperature right at 92, so hit the nail on the head there in terms of the temperature. All the storms that we were pumping out before have now left the Central Florida area. If you're driving just north of Tampa, just keep in mind that there are some pretty heavy thunderstorms out there if you're driving down I-75 toward Tampa. Just keep that in mind, especially if you're north of the metro area. That is where the strongest stuff is at this hour, but that will continue to stay to our west by 7 o'clock, just about 20 minutes from now. Stray opportunity, mainly west of I-75 again in Central Florida. Other than that, we are dry for the remainder of the evening. There's 79 degrees by 11, 78 degrees by 1 o'clock in the morning. Storms come back tomorrow, but much, much later in your evening. We're going to pinpoint the timeline of those storms and, of course, talk tropics coming up at about 6:47.
Jonathan, thank you. We want to check in and see where you stand this hurricane season. Are you prepared?
We asked this same question 2 months ago at the start of hurricane season, and most people said that they were working on it. Understandable, right? Start of hurricane season. Well, we want to know where things stand today. Open up your camera app, scan the QR code on the screen, and click the link. That will take you to our poll. So you can select not at all, somewhat, working on it, very, extremely. So far, majority say that they're working on it.
Right? Aren't we all just a work in progress?
You know what? If we're not working on something, we're going backwards. So I like it. We're working on it, folks. You can also go to clickorlando.com/react, send in your response to the poll that way, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now is a good time as ever to download the new 6 Pinpoint Hurricane Tracker app. Jonathan and the entire team of meteorologists keeping you up to date on everything developing in the tropics right in that app. Very digestible. You can download it for free in the Google Play or Apple App Store.
Well, you often see sheriffs on TV or online focusing on crime and getting results for the community.
Right, and some of the top cops in Central Florida are more well-known than others. Anchors and Florida's Fourth Estate hosts, Matt Austin and Ginger Gadsden, caught up with one local sheriff who has made headlines here and across the country.
What got you into policing? What made you say that this, I mean, clearly your dad, was it your dad who was a big influence on you and that's why you did it?
So all I ever really grew up with knew was police work. So as a kid, my father was my hero, and I wanted to be just like him. As a teenager, I discovered that cops were assholes, and my father was my father. Am I allowed to say that? Or
yeah, you are. Do it.
Yeah. And my father was the Antichrist. So in high school and then when my college career went up in flames, we can talk about that a little later. My first trip through college. Really didn't see eye to eye with him. I got married young, had a couple daughters, was working on the docks in Philadelphia, and I realized there's got to be more to life than this. The money's great, but this is like mind-numbing work. And I slowly gravitated toward police work. And then at the age of 23, I got hired by the Philadelphia Police Department. I walked through the doors of that academy, and I knew that first day I belonged, and this is what I was going to do with the rest of my life.
Wow, at the age of 23, had it all figured out.
Sometimes it takes that long, but
Yeah.
I think he was trying to deflect what his calling truly was until that moment.
Yeah.
Because I think he was born to be a police officer.
Right?
I mean, he's always, I mean, even as a sheriff, where you're not seeing a lot of sheriffs across the country respond to more things like he does.
And he does it seems like day in and
Yeah.
day out.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
the field. Or you can hear more of that conversation on Florida's Fourth Estate. New episodes are being uploaded weekly to your favorite podcast platform, as well as clickorlando.com and YouTube. It's also in the new 6 Plus app for your smart TV, or you can listen wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, let's take a look at what's trending right now on Central Florida's #1 news website, clickorlando.com. The top story: changes coming to Florida driver's licenses starting Wednesday. There's going to be a new section on licenses. Find out what that is and what you need to do right now in this article on clickorlando.com.
And here's some other trending stories online. Is there a sunken nuclear bomb near Florida?
Hope not.
Right? We are looking at where the bomb went missing nearly 70 years ago, and most importantly, what could happen to it. And finally, what is the 35-foot-long monster lurking in the St. Johns River? The answer is a little more friendly than the name suggests.
I got to read that story.
I know, right? What is it?
I mean,
I
are we
didn't know
talking
there
about
was
a 35-foot manatee? That's friendly, and that's also in the St. Johns River. No?
It couldn't be 35 feet
Definitely
long.
not. It's the size like an RV. That would be something. Well, still ahead on News 6 at 6:30 to ensure clean water for years to come. One Central Florida utility company is drilling deeper, breaking into an untapped water source. We're going to explain why in tonight's Boomtown Report.
And protecting you from raining rocket parts means moving missions away from Florida. We'll tell you which space company is shipping some of its interstellar operations elsewhere.
You're watching News 6 at 6:30 live on News 6 Plus. We're getting results in Deltona, Castleberry, and all of Central Florida. Stay with us.
Brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Toyota, let's go places.
All right, welcome back. Meteorologist Jonathan Kegas joins us now. All right, so if folks are planning maybe an evening walk right now, looking pretty good out there, huh?
Yeah, all things considered, we know how things can linger late into your evening, and that's not the case for anybody tonight. We could use the rain along the coast. We've been talking about that ad nauseum, but nonetheless, everybody is now dry. Those storms push quickly out of central Florida and are closer to the Tampa area right now. Hour by hour forecast, again, 20% shot by 7 o'clock, and that's mainly west again of I-75. We're back to the upper 70s by 11. We're at 78 degrees by 1. There are where all the storms went. Big lightning strikes closer to Spring Hill, closer to the Tampa area, especially north of Tampa, west of Lakeland as well. So if we happen to be traveling down I-75, that's where we're going to see the opportunity for some of those stronger thunderstorms, and again, closer to the Tampa area. Also watching this blob, again, highlighted by the National Hurricane Center. There's nothing going on inside of that blob right now. This is where the development could happen over the next 7 days. The entity itself is way back down here into the Atlantic, and it's hardly anything right now. Want to show you the water vapor imagery. Look closely at this little swirl here. Notice how brown it is. That's the northern extremity of our tropical wave, the southern part of it down here, trying to blossom a little bit with some very scattered showers and clouds. It is a big, broad area of spin, and when these things get big like this, especially early on, it is really, really hard for them to consolidate and strengthen. So any kind of development over the next few days is going to be slow and gradual at best until it gets towards the greater Antilles and parts of the Bahamas area, Turks and Caicos. Again, nice and quiet early on here. We're going to keep things on the quieter side, but we could use the rain right along the coast. I want to show you this, the deficit over the last 30 days. We're talking about 2 to 4, maybe 5 inches below normal over the past 30 days, right along the Space Coast, especially at parts of the Volusia Coast as well. We did get a nice dose of rain in around the Orlando area, and especially points to the west for us in Ocala, the Villages, into Leesburg, Mineola, and Claremont. Nonetheless, it has been super dry for us along the coast. Again, there's the help that we received in Orlando anyway. 0.07 of an inch on the 25th, took a day off, and then about 1/4 of an inch on the 27th. And then yesterday was the big ticket day to really help take a bite out of the deficit at the Orlando International Airport, nearly 1.5 inches. So for the rest of this evening, there is 8 o'clock, just a stray shower, again, mainly west of I-75. Then tomorrow, we're going to start things off pretty nice, and we will see temperatures get back into the mid-90s. Now here's a look at your pinpoint, accurate forecast.
Your forecast is sponsored by Florida Lottery.
Temperature is going to get back into the mid-90s over the next few days. We're going to keep things there. We're at 40% shot for storms. Most of those thunderstorm chances, though, come by late into the evening. So I think a lot of your early afternoon and morning are going to be dry. 60% shot on Wednesday for storms. We're going to keep those storm chances at 60% right on through the end of the work week, guys.
Thank you, Jonathan. And with it being hurricane season, now's a good time to make sure you have your supplies and your food.
Sometimes when it comes to picking up food, you might go for those delicious snacks. Today, anchor Crystal Moyer filled in on Breakfast with Bridget. She spoke with a dietitian with Orlando Health about the healthier options you should add to your pantry.
What you really want to make sure is you're getting adequate protein. Protein is going to fill you up and keep you satisfied. The days are long, might be a little bit of boredom and things too from time to time, but protein, canned meat like chicken, tuna, ham, even salmon can be really, really nutritious. And nice and filling too, but don't forget about beans like kidney beans and black beans, garbanzo beans. They don't require any cooking. You can make that into a salad. You can eat it essentially right out of the can if you would need to, or put it on some whole wheat bread. If you're going to purchase bread, maybe choose for the whole grains. It's going to be a little bit high in fiber, and again, be more satisfying and more filling for you.
Hear that, kids? We're not getting Cheetos this year.
I don't know.
We're doing cans of beans.
Yeah, they're looking for something a little bit more well-balanced than...
which I can appreciate that.
Well, for me, I'm a big Uncrustables guy, and it says 6 grams of protein on there, so I don't know. I can get away with that, right?
But you also were talking earlier about, during a hurricane, there's a lot of stress eating that takes place.
And stress drinking.
Yeah, right?
I know that one too. Well, I've never experienced that because I'm always here, but I've heard things. And you can catch Breakfast with Bridget live weekday mornings at 7:30 on the News 6 streaming app for your smart TV, which you're doing right now, or you can go to clickorlando.com.
With Central Florida's population surging, the demand for safe and clean water is also rising. To meet the growing needs, News 6 learned the Orlando Utilities Commission approved a new way to prepare and boost the water supply.
And that involves drilling even deeper into the lower aquifer, something OUC has never done before. Now, it'll be years before this new plant is fully operational, but OUC says tapping into this new water source will make sure customers have enough clean drinking water for decades to come. I caught up with OUC to learn more in tonight's Boomtown Report. How long have you had these?
These are brand new, so these have been in operation for about 3 months now.
It's business as usual at OUC's Conway Water Treatment Plant. And that's by design.
We like to be in the background. We don't want you to have to worry about your water system. This is an overview of the entire system.
Brad Jewell has been OUC's Director of Water Production for 20 years. In that time, the region's population has exploded. How is the growth affecting OUC?
We're able to maintain our water pressure and our water quality because of the growth, but we know we have to do a few extra things for the future growth.
That includes drilling even farther into the lower Floridan aquifer to access an untapped source of brackish groundwater, a $155 million project OUC just approved to meet the growing demand. And this is the first time that you're tapping into this lower level?
This is the first time OUC is tapping into this lower level.
Okay.
That's correct.
Does that have any environmental impacts or anything that's, can you explain that?
We've modeled the pulling the groundwater from this depth, and it has minimal impacts on the springs in the area.
Jewell says because the water is more minerally concentrated at 2,000 feet, it'll undergo reverse osmosis, another first for OUC.
We take the highly mineralized water and we pump it through a filter. And on the other side, backside of the filter, we have clean water. And then we're going to treat it just like we do the rest of our water. Give it a little bit of ozone, chlorine, fluoride, and send it to our customers.
Being able to accommodate the amount of people, how big of a deal is this? Is this something that you feel is absolutely necessary?
Yes, we do. The cost, we're looking at $155 million, but this will provide us with enough safe drinking water until the year 2045. Now, half of my water right now still goes on people's lawns, so the more conservation they can push, the better we'll be.
Construction on the new facility just north of the 417 in Lake Nona is scheduled to start by the end of 2025.
Prior to COVID, to 2020, we went ahead and we had a feasibility study done where we just looked at the existing geology in the area and the other wells that have been drilled in the area.
OUC anticipates it won't be fully operational, though, until 2033. But that just shows you the trajectory that we're on, right?
Yes.
And getting ahead of this before it reaches a critical point.
That's correct. OUC's always want to stay a little bit ahead, and with them giving us this extra time, we can make sure that we can meet that deadline.
It's crazy that half of the water goes onto lawns. I mean,
frustrating.
That seems very wasteful.
Definitely wasteful, but they know that that's probably going to continue because it's not something that's enforceable. It's more like your neighbor telling you, hey, you don't need to be, you realize your sprinklers are going off and it's the wet season like twice a week. So it's more of like that because it's not an enforceable thing. But drilling deeper into the aquifer is also not something that's unique across the board when it comes to Florida. Southwest Florida power companies, utility companies are also doing something similar, at least getting things in order to be able to drill deeper into the aquifer with the projections that we've seen. I mean, we've been talking about Florida's projected population over the course of the next decade, and it's not slowing down. So
it seems alarming though when you hear that they have to dig deeper, drill deeper in order to meet the needs.
And they have to go through that next process of making sure that it's clean by the time it gets to you. And on top of that project, OUC is also in the process of upgrading some of the 7 water treatment plants, upgrades that are needed, you guessed it, based on the growth that we've already experienced. So a lot behind the scenes that you don't necessarily think about, but very important nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, in the interest of protecting you and your family from raining rocket debris, SpaceX is moving some of its interstellar operations away from Central Florida.
Coming up, we're taking a closer look at the spacecraft creating concern and where it's being moved. We're back in 2 minutes.
Coming up in the morning, the debate over development. The local county considering making it harder to build on rural land, and why not everyone is happy about the idea.
Plus your pinpoint weather and traffic every 10 minutes. We'll see you for News 6 Morning starting at 5.
We're back now with some video from 2022 showing a 9-foot-tall chunk of charred spacecraft lodged into the ground on someone's property in Australia. This is the moment SpaceX realized it might have a problem with space debris, particularly from its Dragon capsule. SpaceX says this was part of the trunk, a part of the Dragon that is intentionally jettisoned before splashdown.
Yeah, now it is supposed to all burn up in the atmosphere over the open ocean, and it typically does, but SpaceX says this instance, and now 3 others just like it reported in just the last 6 months, has it rethinking its splashdown protocol and location. News 6's James Sparvero explains why the future of space is about to get a lot busier over on the West Coast.
Well, launches are back. 2 Falcon 9s blasting off here over the weekend as the FAA cleared SpaceX to return to flight. That means the rocket that will launch the next astronauts to the International Space Station will be ready, but when Crew 9 comes back next year, it will be the last time you'll have a chance to see this.
Copy, braced for splashdown.
Because there's no longer going to be Dragon splashdowns on our coast. When astronaut missions got started, SpaceX changed how they got rid of the Dragon's trunk. The trunk is the expendable part of Dragon below the spacecraft, and for the last 5 years, while recovery operations have been in Florida, they've left the trunk in orbit expecting it to burn up in the atmosphere. To their surprise, though, there's been a couple of times pieces of the trunk have survived re-entry, like in May, when debris was found in North Carolina. So now SpaceX wants to go back to how they handled the trunk when they recovered Dragon in the Pacific, keeping it attached to the spacecraft until after re-entry. They did it this way 21 times, starting in 2010.
What we'll do is we'll implement a software change to complete the deorbit burn before jettisoning the trunk, like we did with Dragon 1. And then the trunk will intentionally land safely uprange in an unpopulated area of the ocean again.
And with Dragon operations moving out west, that means one of the SpaceX ships at Port Canaveral will be moving too. Sarah Walker says another reason for the move is no more hurricane seasons.
When we looked at the flight rules for wind, rain, wave height, all of the criteria that determine our flight rules for return, we actually saw that the West Coast sites that we're looking at have much better weather, which allows us to have much better return availability.
And getting Dragon ready to fly again will still continue to happen here. So after recovery in the Pacific, SpaceX will have to move the capsule cross-country. In Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, I'm James Sparvero, getting results, News 6.
Well, if it reduces the potential for space debris landing on
it's a no-brainer, I guess.
It's just a far trip.
And then interesting that they mentioned the tropical activity here in Florida, too.
We know it. Sometimes it gets stuck up there for a few more days. And it's a little choppy around these parts sometimes.
All right. Thanks for watching News 6 at 6:30. You can stream News 6 online anytime on our News 6 Plus Smart TV app.
We'll see you back here at 11. Take care.